Hello, everyone. Hello. I need to mute the stream before I start hearing myself. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special little bonus stream here on the Potterthon channel. It's been a while since we've done anything that's not a marathon, and this is a very special event. We're here to watch for the first time live an interview that was done by one of our amazing organisers, Mr. Paxalinsky, with the Trevor Project. It was done with someone called Keegan Miller from the Trevor Project. They use they them pronouns, as Jinx has put in the title. And yeah, they are a wonderful person. It's a 45-minute long interview, guys, so we've got a lot to get through. But I want to just say before we get started that this is very much Pax's baby. He has completely went to town with this. He's thumbnailed it. He's done the interview. He's written up the questions. He's done the research. And this was all sort of discussed and talked about in the debrief from Potterthon 10. And in less than a month, he's turned this around. And I think that's really impressive. So big shout outs to Pax. He has, I'm sure many of you will know who he is in this community. He's not a quiet one, so to speak. But yeah, he's a wonderful person, and we love and appreciate him very much. But yeah, so what you're about to see, like I say, is the pre-recorded interview. I will preface that before we start. It is not live; it is pre-recorded. And yeah, Pax did an incredible job with this. Enjoy this 45 minutes of discussion with Keegan Miller from the Trevor Project. Take it away.
Hello again. Thanks for giving me or us this opportunity to speak with, well, you as a representative of the Trevor Project. First of all, I wanted to ask for your pronouns, if that's
Yeah, so I'm Keegan. I use they, them pronouns.
they, them. All right, got it. Excuse me if I forget to remember. I do usually have an issue with remembering stuff. All right. First of all, I wanted to ask you maybe a bit about yourself, if you want to tell a bit. What did bring you to the Trevor Project? What exactly is your position or your job at the Trevor Project? And maybe also some personal stuff, if you would feel comfortable sharing what brought you to work there or to end up here with me.
Sure. So I currently serve as the director of public training here at Trevor, which basically means that I get to do a lot of training on LGBTQ identities, on suicide prevention and mental health, really equipping adults to be able to be supportive of LGBTQ young people, how to respond in crisis, those types of things. And I've been at Trevor for 6 years, and I didn't start out in the public training team. I actually started out in the advocacy team. And so a little bit about how my journey ended up there. I'm a former high school teacher. I taught special education math for about 5 years in public school settings. And I went back to school here in Washington, D.C., which is where I now reside, for education policy. I wanted to get in on the policy side of the education process. And so I was looking for internships while I was in school, and came across one here at the Trevor Project on the advocacy team where they were reviewing school suicide prevention policies. And so right up my alley of what I was doing in school. So I was like, cool, that sounds great. And, working for Trevor sounded like a great thing. And it was also a paid internship, which is very important.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and basically from there, Trevor was growing, and I kind of worked myself into a job doing a lot of work on schools and LGBTQ inclusion in schools, suicide prevention in schools, that kind of stuff. And did that for a while. Unfortunately, the politics has changed over the last couple of years, and a lot of stuff has turned more reactionary and fighting off the negative stuff that's happening, like book bans and anti-LGBTQ bills and stuff. And it didn't feel as proactive and didn't feel as good personally. As a trans person, it was really, really stressful. And so when the opportunity to move over to the public training team came about, because they were growing as well, I was like, hey, let's return to the education side of this, which is definitely more my cup of tea. And so I came over here, and now I get to be more proactive and build communities that are full of allies, and that feels really good. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Really cool. That's a good story. Yeah. No, thank you very much for sharing that. I think that's gonna be very interesting to see, like, how you as a person are built to like help out or wanting to help out, and with your story that you told, like with your history from school on, also being a teacher and everything, like, yeah, just ending up here and wanting to help other people. That's really cool. That's really nice.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I also want to obviously ask a bit about the Trevor Project itself. I wanted to start out like with a small introduction for the Trevor Project. I thought of maybe like, could you give us a brief overview of the Trevor Project's mission and how it was founded maybe? And for those who may not be familiar, could you explain what specific services the Trevor Project offers for the LGBTQ plus community?
Sure. So Trevor Project was founded over 25 years ago, and it started from a film, and you can actually find the film on YouTube. It's called Trevor, and it's about a boy who is really exploring his identity, and it never explicitly says that he's exploring his sexual orientation, but he definitely is. And you know, as he's kind of trying to figure out who he is, he struggles a bit, and at one point contemplates suicide as part of that journey. And you know, it's a really powerful film. It's a short film, won an Oscar, I think. Anyway, but as the director and producer were talking about this film, they're like, well, what happens when young people feel like Trevor did? Like, what happens when people are feeling like suicide's the only answer for them at that moment? And, you know, who do they turn to? Where do they find support? And so from there, this idea was born of like, well, what if we had a phone number for them to call, where they could talk about these things and they, you know, not be alone, essentially. And so it started out, the Lifeline started as limited hours. So it was like nights and weekends, essentially, all volunteer run at the time. But it was just a way for folks to, you know, have that connection. And over our 25 years of existence, we've grown from that to now having 24/7 services. We have our Lifeline, we have our chat function on the web, and then we have our texting as well. The nice thing about the chat function is that it does work in more places than just the United States. Doesn't work everywhere, but it can. You know, we do get chats from other places at times. We also have expanded to Trevor Mexico, so serving not only Mexico, but part of Central America as well. And of course, all of those are Spanish-speaking services, which is really helpful too. And there's a bunch of resources on their page as well. So anyway, so we've expanded into this 24/7 model, into these other platforms, which is really great because Lord knows no one likes using the phone anymore. And so, you know, and our what used to be just volunteers has now grown into, we have full-time, you know, paid counselors, but we still do have volunteers, which is a way that folks can get involved is volunteering as a crisis counselor. And our volunteers are amazing and do really great work. So, you know, we have all that going on, but then we started to get asked as kind of experts in the field of like, okay, well, you know, do you have any research that supports this? Do you have data? Do you have people who can speak to these issues? What about policy issues? And so from there, we start to see our prevention side start to grow. And so on the prevention side of the house, we have Trevor Space, which is a social networking site for folks who are ages 13 to 24 and who are LGBTQ. And basically, it's a way for folks to get online and connect with one another in a safe space, right? And social media can be really good for building connections, but it can also have a lot of negative things about it. And so with Trevor Space, we're trying to build a space that is safe and that is supportive, and but is still a way for folks to connect in with the community. So we have that. We have our research team, which over the last 6 years have put out a national survey every year on LGBTQ youth mental health. So we have a lot of data there. We just launched a longitudinal study, which is really exciting. So in a couple of years, there'll be some really robust data out of that as well, which is really cool. So we have the research team. We have the advocacy team, which works on policy issues, local, state, and federal. Really trying to protect LGBTQ young people. And then we have our education team, which is myself and my colleague Kyle, which, you know, we're all over the country doing public trainings and trying to work at schools, nonprofits, you know, all sorts of places. So really on the prevention side, you know, our goal is to work ourselves out of a job, right? Like we would love to not need to exist anymore. And that's really what the aim is. But all of this is working on, you know, our mission is to end LGBTQ youth suicide. But our real goal, though, is that every young person sees a bright future for themselves, right? That they have hope, that they find a place to be in the world. And that's what we're really aiming for.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Actually, I think it's a bit funny, but very fitting that the idea comes from a film. Like one day you sit there and then you watch the film and you're like, yeah, actually that's an issue. Somebody should do something about that, and that it comes from there is like it's kind of funny, but yeah, it's really cool. Also the chat function I wrote down, going with time, obviously, like you said, nobody likes to use his phones anymore. Yes, and I think, like, also speaking from personal experience, like it's easier sometimes to like just have a chat, not to, because talking is way different in my opinion, at least, and like have a thing to not be one-on-one directly or stay in contact with someone. That's maybe even a bit more helpful for some people, than especially in those kind of situations where you are tempted to do suicide. And yeah, I think that is a good call to have something like that. Also, the research surveys, obviously, also taking data. How is it evolving? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Where is the next step probably to attack next? Basically, what do we need to build, or what do we need to do? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, cool. Alright, then I am at programs and impact. Speaking like, are there any highlights or any recent campaigns or events that you're particularly proud of? How has the Trevor Project approached suicide prevention and mental health evolved in recent years, especially with the changing of social political landscape? You have said it earlier, with the political change and everything. And in your opinion, what was the biggest impact or milestone that was achieved by the project in the past years?
Yeah, a lot of great questions. So, you know, I think some of the things that we're seeing from our research and from other peer organizations that are doing work in the LGBTQ spaces is we're seeing more acceptance in the world generally, which is great, but that also means that we're seeing a lot more backlash from people who are very loud about they're not supporting LGBTQ issues. And so it's fascinating. We watch these numbers, you know, we asked our young people what if their home is an accepting space, if their school is an accepting space, if their community is accepting, those types of things. And we've seen those numbers creep up over the past, 5 or 6 years here, which is great. But yet we're seeing, this session over 500 anti-LGBTQ laws introduced. So the juxtaposition there is fascinating. And it just means that we have a lot of work to do to let our young people know that they are supported and that they are accepted and that they can be who they want to be. On the mental health side, we're talking more and more about mental health. These upcoming generations are more willing to have the conversation about what's going on with our mental health and well-being, which is really a positive thing. But that also means that we need to make sure that the supports are there to help them in that journey, right? Like it's one thing for our young people to say, yes, I want mental health help. 84% of our young people in our last survey said they wanted mental health help, but 50% of that group weren't able to get the help that they needed in the last year. So, and there's a lot of reasons for that, whether it's, access issues or stigma or LGBTQ specific things, it runs the gamut. But that just tells me we have a lot of work to do to increase access, right? And so those are things that, we've learned. I think one of the biggest things that we've done over the last several years, turning our chat and text into 24/7, that happened in the first year that I was with the Trevor Project. And that was a huge milestone for us because, again, as we talked about, like, people like chat and text functions a lot more, and so having that 24/7 thing. Also, the introduction of 988. So 988 is our national lifeline number. So much like calling emergency services for physical health is 911, this is 988 for mental health emergencies. And so what's cool about that is that it's not just the national lifeline, but there are specialized services as part of that lifeline. So there are services for Spanish speakers, there are services for veterans, there are services for LGBTQ folks. And so getting that carve out in that federal funding that says, yes, we're funding specific services for LGBTQ young people, or for LGBTQ people, not just young people. Amazing, right? So that's a huge accomplishment that happened in the last couple of years. And then, we continue our work on things like banning conversion therapy. So Kentucky just became the 28th state to protect LGBTQ young people from conversion therapy, which is really, really great. And we still have a lot of work to do, obviously, another 22 states to go. But the fact that Kentucky did that is so mind-boggling. So, there's things like that, and if we keep doing these little pieces here and there and over here, like, it's all going to add up.
Yeah.
Eventually, right? And so that's some of the more exciting stuff that's been going on, though.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, yeah, working towards more acceptance generally in the world, or like just under humans especially, is really great. Good cause. That's definitely needed. And yeah, that it's a back and forth on, we get more people towards our side, but there's also more people who are against it that rise from that. Yeah, that's a genuine problem. Yeah, I can imagine that there's just like some people just jump on that train and for and against it. Also anti-LGBTQ laws, the working on them is great. Yeah. That stuff like that even exists is one problem, but fighting them is definitely a good way to spend your time, I would say. And helping obviously with speaking openly about mental health is good, because I feel like some people, or like most of them probably, just have a fear of speaking out loud, or shy, or held back by anything. Not really wanting to speak about like personal stuff, or like maybe even not themselves knowing how to feel about it, and then how would they talk to someone else about it. So that's also great with the support on that side. Also the 24/7, I assume it's probably also a good thing for worldwide support. You said earlier that it's not only America, that it supports a bigger range of countries and everything, and I think especially with that, that's very useful to have a 24/7. And obviously the lifeline, which is not only used for LGBTQ, but like almost everybody can call and get a specialist. That's also very, very helpful. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm already enjoying this. Like, for me personally, this has already helped to like get a look into it and like see what people are actually doing for it. And I'm really glad this came to be. Yeah, challenges and opportunities. Obviously, we've talked already. There are some challenges involved in trying actually to help people. What are some of the biggest challenges the Trevor Project has faced in providing support for the youth? And especially, I can imagine during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were some issues. And in what areas do you see opportunities for growth and expansions for the service in the future?
Sure. So, there are challenges in being a youth-facing organization. There are a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of folks who, they want to call us groomers or say we're turning people, trying to turn people gay or things like that, and which is really frustrating. But that impacts our ability to do our work in lots of ways. But particularly, like at one point there was I don't know if you call it a campaign. Basically there was all these folks online who were encouraging others to call or chat or text our lines to basically just like fill the lines up with people who weren't actually seeking help, prevent other people from getting the help that they need. And I'm like, so you're preventing people from trying to, like, you're actively trying not to like have them get help to stay alive, like
manipulating kind of.
yeah, it mind-boggling that's was someone's agenda, but it happened, and so we had to deal with that. We've had to deal with funding issues. We are a nonprofit, so with all this backlash that's happened in recent years, a lot of companies have stopped supporting LGBTQ nonprofits, and so we've taken a hit there. People like to say that our research is biased, and we're like, we are IRB approved, we are peer reviewed, like it's all these things, but it's so all of that detracts from our mission and our work. So those are some of the bigger challenges, that we're facing for sure. For growth, obviously expanding our reach in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, and I mean, again, this is a challenge, is just getting people to know that we exist and that we are there, that, what resources are there for folks. That's a challenge, and definitely also an opportunity for folks to like spread the word, share out, all those things. Having our services in more languages, and our resources in more languages is definitely an area for growth that we've talked about, and it's definitely a focus area in the next 5 years or so. I think in our research, that longitudinal study is going to be a game changer, because nothing like that has ever existed for LGBTQ mental health. So that's going to be good, but like also thinking about, okay, what opportunities from that, to do more research to understand the issues better. That's an opportunity as well. And then I think there's a lot of proactive work that we could be doing to protect youth, whether that's in our advocacy work with legislation, or whether that's within our public training spaces. Right now, a lot of our public training is happening in spaces where we're getting invited to those spaces, and that's not necessarily the folks who need it the most, right? And so I think that there's some opportunity for us to be more proactive in that space and say, okay, where are the spaces where LGBTQ young people are least supported, and how do we build those communities up to be supportive?
Yeah, that definitely does sound like good plans for the future, important plans. Like you said earlier, you already have like the American, Spanish, but going more I think I guess for you specifically would probably be French for more towards the Canadian route, and then going overseas towards the European part. So yeah, I think that's a really good thing to have on your agenda for the next years. It really, I don't want to say it made me mad, but because I already know this stuff and that stuff like this happens, but like always hearing it, that there's actually people working against this, or like starting to troll online and just flooding help hotlines with bullshit, basically. Sorry. And manipulating just the work that not only your organization but like general organizations to actually help is just, like you said, it's mind-boggling. It's just, you can't imagine that somebody would actually do something like this or get the idea to do this, but it happens. Sadly.
Exactly.
But I hope like we all, not just you, but the people who help or to support the project from the outside, the volunteers and people who donate to charity for your cause, can help with actually making that better, spreading the word, getting it out to people. And I really hope also that's a goal for the next years, not from your side, but from the people, to actually help out with that, since sadly this is an upcoming topic, or not upcoming, already existing, but it's getting more and more. It's not gonna get less probably in the next years.
For sure.
You also talked about partnerships. Some companies don't support anymore, don't want to support. That's actually fitting, because that would have been my next topic, collaborations and partnerships. Have there been any recent collaborations or partnerships with any organizations or companies that have helped, actually, not just said, no, I don't want to support? And where do donations go specifically? I assume like the build up for paying the non-voluntary people or giving the voluntary people some stuff, but
so recently our public training team has partnered with the Maryland Department of Health, which has been amazing, running our first train the trainer program. So essentially giving people the tools to do our premier trainings, our ally training and our care training, which has really been cool. And so we've done multiple trainings with them over the last couple of years in the state of Maryland, and then we did this train the trainer program. And so it's been really cool to see how we can impact a whole state, and potentially we could take that model and move to other states and do the same thing. And so it's a really important partnership for us in that. But we also have we do have corporate donors who are amazing, and we do trainings for them as well. I mean, today I have a training after this with the NFL and with AEG. So like we have corporate partners that we're NASCAR donates to us.
Okay.
Places that you wouldn't expect sometimes, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But like the NFL started with us after Carl Nassib came out, and he made a donation, and then the NFL matched that donation, but they've maintained, and I think that's really important for organizations like that, which is not a typical demographic, supporting LGBTQ spaces. So for organizations like that, to companies like that to sponsor us is really big deal. And the fact that they're then doing trainings to help their own culture is also really, really spectacular. So the vast majority of our expenses is our paid Lifeline counselors. Those folks, they're doing the hard work, making sure we're available 24/7. But it's a pretty large team. I think we're at around 450, 475 full-time staff, and I would say 2/3 of those are crisis services. So they're either crisis counselors or supervisors, which the supervisors help support both the counselors and our volunteers. So really important, like they're the ones who, if there is an imminent risk situation, they're stepping in and helping and making sure that, you know, people are taken care of and that kind of stuff. So they're amazing. And then we have our trainers who train all of our volunteers. Those folks are also amazing, running huge training classes, but making sure that everyone feels like they have that individualized support that they need, like amazing. So yeah, crisis services is probably about 2/3 of our staff. And so that's where a lot of funding is needed, and a lot of funding goes towards that, which is great. You know, we're talking about challenges earlier. I mentioned funding, and we love any type of funding at any point in time, but a lot of folks like give restricted funding, and they're like, oh, I wanted to go to this program or that program, and which is great. Like, we love your support, but donations that are like, pay the bills, like, please use this to pay the bills. Like, that's what we really need. Keep the metaphoric lights on, right? So yeah, we do love corporations who are just like, here you go. We're like, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to see like support, especially from the companies you mentioned, like the NFL or NASCAR, which you also said you wouldn't think that they would sponsor for those kind of projects, or just like charity in general. And also the in-house training basically for their own is just, that's something really good to hear. I'll just say it's good to hear that there's actually something going on, even if it's in the background, but there is stuff happening, and that's good to know, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we did have we did invite for half an hour. I hope you do have a bit more time, but if not, I can skip over a few questions. I'll leave it up to you.
I have a little bit more time. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, we talked about community and volunteer involvement. I think we can maybe go over that a bit quicker. How can individuals help or organizations get involved with the Trevor Project? Are there specific ways people can contribute beyond financial donations? And how do you ensure that your volunteers and staff are equipped to handle the sensitive nature of the work they do? I mean, yeah, I think it's gonna be an easy one for you.
Yeah. So, okay, where to start? So, ways people can get involved. So first and foremost, we are only helpful if people know about us. So the more people spread our resources around, whether that's telling people about our Lifeline, whether that's posting flyers, which we do have flyers that people can like print off or share digitally or anything like that, which I'm happy to share those later as well. Yeah. Sure. So we have all those things, and like getting the word out there about that and sharing those resources is number one way that people can help, in all honesty. Of course, funding is another one. Volunteers, another big thing. Again, our crisis counselors are our bread and butter. They really are amazing. Volunteers have to be over 18 and currently reside in the United States or Mexico if they're Mexico volunteers. But that is an option. Also, then things like bringing our trainings to your local communities. So our trainings, either working on LGBTQ identities or suicide prevention and crisis intervention, either one of those. And those trainings can be done in person or virtually. And we have grant funding to cover costs if cost is an issue for folks. So literally just bring us to your community, to your school, your workplace, your church. It doesn't matter, right? Like whatever. Just the more that we have active allies in our community that know how to engage with LGBTQ people, that know how to respond in crisis. That's the thing about our care training, our suicide prevention, mental health, and crisis intervention. Like, that's literally helpful for everyone, whether or not the person's LGBTQ. Like, yes, we do focus a little bit more on specific impacts of LGBTQ with mental health, but we're talking about crisis response. We're talking about like risk detection and warning signs and how to have tough conversations when someone's in crisis, how to ask people if they're thinking about suicide, right? We're talking about all these things that are useful to anyone in your life that is experiencing crisis. So big push for getting that out more in our community as well. So those are some of the ways that folks can help. Our crisis counselors and our volunteers, they go through extensive training to work on the lines, and I think it's like 40 hours of training, and then they have shifts where the supervisor is monitoring and giving feedback and things like that. And then we have opportunities throughout the year for continuing education. So we talk, different modules for learning about different issues or different things that come up throughout the year, that kind of thing. So it's really great. And for the folks who volunteer, I think you learn so much, not only about how to engage in crisis services like that, but also there are useful skills that we use in day-to-day life that are strengthened by that. Things like empathetic listening, like everyone could stand to be a little bit more empathetic listener, like how to ask questions instead of giving directives. Like there's a lot of really good tools and skills that are built in that space, which I think is really valuable for our volunteers. And so I think our volunteers get a lot out of it, not only the satisfaction of helping people who are struggling, but some of that those soft skills too that are really helpful in day-to-day life.
Yeah, like you said, like towards the end, I think it's if somebody wants to get the training, it's not only useful for that specific use case, but like just how do I talk to people in general? How do I, especially with people that are challenged, like that are not feeling well. I think that's just a good soft skill, like you said, to have. And yeah, I mean, obviously they get the training to work on the lines or just in counseling and everything. That obviously makes sense. You can't just let them loose. And yeah, the more the merrier, the more help there is out there, the better, obviously. So yeah, that all makes sense. That checks out. Yeah, speaking of helping people, supporting people, mental health and support, can you maybe share any insights into specific mental health challenges that LGBTQ plus youth faces and how the Trveor Project addresses those needs?
Yeah, so some of the more common like crisis concerns that we hear about, things like not fitting into societal gender norms, and it's not about their identity. It's the reaction that they get from society, showing up in a way that is not expected, and some of the backlash that comes with that. We see things like discrimination, harassment, victimization, which when you're seeing that frequently in your life, that's not good for your mental health and well-being. And then things like rejection, getting kicked out of the house. LGBTQ young people are one of the highest demographics of young people who experience homelessness. And so, not only are you losing your housing in that space, but also familial support and that kind of thing. And so that's really impactful. And then there's just a lot of negativity out in the world right now. The political rhetoric is nine. There's just so many people trying to tell our young people that they don't deserve to be themselves, and that takes a toll on their mental health and well-being as well. And so, those are some of the things that we hear about on the lines that people are struggling with. And the thing I point out about all of those things is like it's other people that are causing those things in these young people's lives.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to stop because it's like, just support them and and accept them for who they are, and let people be themselves, and if we could do that, that would lighten this load so much for our young people.
That makes sense. Yeah, like I can imagine that often with parents that they don't understand, or that maybe don't want to have it real, or just focused on that old-ish kind of world picture that they have. And yeah, I can imagine that that's also a great deal that goes into like having problems, especially at a young age, where you yourself maybe are not that reliant on yourself yet. You're not old enough or too big enough or too experienced enough to, how do I actually go with my own self, with my own life? So yeah, that I can see that is one of the greater challenges. Obviously, with that comes not fitting in society in general. Like I said, that picture in the world that is out there, not fitting into the norm, basically. And yeah, discrimination, harassment, that comes with that. Yeah, I can see that is one of the bigger, or the biggest challenge that they have to face. Speaking of that, what advice would you give for the youth and also for the supporters? Other besides then, obviously spread the word, get it out, spread love, not only the word, but just be a nice human being.
I think for our young people in particular, it's hard to see the progress we're making because it feels so slow right now. But the one thing that I've really recently had the opportunity to really think about is when I first came out, which is many, many years ago now. We were doing stuff, we were working on some of these issues, and it felt like a slog. It felt like, we're never going to make any progress. We're never going to change. But now realizing how many things have changed since that first time that I started doing this work, and the progress that we've made, and understanding that a lot of the pushback that we're seeing now is because of that progress. It's because we're moving in the right direction, and there are always going to be naysayers to that, right? And so I think for our young people, it's important to recognize that the work we're doing now, that the progress we're making now seems slow and it seems painful at times.
Yeah.
But progress is still happening. And in 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to look back and we're going to say, oh, look at how much has changed, and look at how much has impacted the world. And I think that perspective can give a lot of hope and encouragement to keep going and go forward. And then for our supporters, the biggest thing we can do is just believe people when they say who they are, and accept them for that, and just say, I'm here, how can I be of support? And it's the biggest thing that we can do. And that's not just even for LGBTQ issues, that's for anything in life. It's it's the thank you for sharing that with me, and how can I support you? Like, always, going back to that statement is always the best thing we can do to really help people.
Like, just show them their support, just nothing specific, just in general. What do you need? Tell me, can I do anything for you? You're good as you are. You do as you feel, you do as you please, and just how can I support? And that's not only for this specific case, like you said, it's just something you could take, or you should take in life in general. So yeah. All right. And then for the closing, I've asked you enough. Now it's time for you. If I missed anything, or if you want to share some words or anything, you can let me know now.
No, I think we've covered quite a bit today. But really, really great questions. And again, I just hope that people continue getting the word out about Trevor. We have some really great resources out there, and again, we're only helpful if we're in front of folks. So thank you for getting us out there a little bit more with this.
We are obviously happy that in like we are maybe not a big community or like a huge community, but we do have a big or decent sized community, and with having those events like once twice a year, depending on how it's going, just spreading the word, trying to get out what you're actually doing and for what we are collecting money and how we are trying to support. We also do obviously have some members in the community from the LGBTQ plus community, and they obviously are also happy that we do spread the word, that we do want to help, that we are there also obviously to support and show that we don't reject them or anything, but that we embrace them. And yeah, it's glad to hear that we can do our part, as big or small as it might be, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was actually glad that I'm gonna repeat myself, but I'm still very glad that we got this opportunity. It was a spitballed idea from my side, actually, because I always wanted to do something like this, like have an interview about anything or with anyone. And yeah, I brought it up in the last debrief after the last event, and I said, yeah, why? I mean, they can't say more than no or just not reply. So why not just try? And yeah,
Absolutely.
I went out, and then I was like, actually, what do I text? Because there was multiple, and then I was like, yeah, okay, sure, teaching sounds about right, or like community, or like outside sounds about right to text, and I'm glad that I did, and you're definitely an awesome person, and it was very nice having you in the interview and you answering my questions. And I think we all, or for now me, but later on when people get to see the video, they learn not just about your cause, the project, but also just in general about the community itself. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Well, there we go, guys. That was the interview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed it. I've already watched it because I went through and did the timestamps and everything for the YouTube version. But watching it again and getting to listen again to Keegan talk so passionately about the work that they do it's been really enjoyable. The plan is to use that snippets of that interview to sort of reinforce our future content. So if we're raising money for the Trevor Project to get a project again in the future, then we can, like the bit where they talk about donations, we can say, well, where do your donations go? Well, here's Keegan to tell us more, and play that bit, which is one of the cool things we sort of had the idea of with this interview. But again, I want to say a massive shout out to Pax, who is in the chat right now. He was literally this was his baby, as I said earlier. He had the idea, he sent the emails, he filled in the form when the automatic email came back and told him he was at the wrong email address. He did, but yeah, he basically did everything, and this would not be on your screens right now without his fabulous work. He even made this wonderful thumbnail. So in terms of, I guess, yeah, I say this, we're now at the point where we've raised $10,000 for the Trevor Project, and we have, we're within the top 50 individual fundraisers, which is an incredible achievement. And yeah, in terms of where you can see this from now on, obviously the VOD will be staying here on the Twitch channel, we'll highlight it, but it will be going live, the full interview will be going live on both the Potterthon channel and also on the HPSR Updates channel, which was a decision we made to try and improve the viewability of it, because we want people to see this interview because we're proud of it. Pax did a darn good job. So, we want to get it out there. But yeah, that is it now, though, for this year. I know we said before that the Potterthon 10 was the last thing. That's going to be it. I can tell you now, we're not going to be doing anything until next year. Next year at the moment is shaping up to be a really cool year. We've got 3 really cool events looking on the horizon. One very unique one as well, which I'm very excited about. We're conceptualizing that at the moment. But once again, a huge thank you to Pax for all of his hard work. Can we get one final shout out to Pax, please, mods? And yeah, thank you everybody for taking the time to come and watch the interview, or if you're watching the VOD, thank you for watching this on YouTube. But yeah, I think with that, we'll head on out and we'll look for somebody to raid. But I believe Mr. My tech person, aka Mr. Flo, thank you to Flo as well for actually restreaming the interview, will end the stream and then we will look for somebody to raid and send the love over to. But yeah, guys,
Yes.
thank you for watching. Thank you for all of your support as ever, and we'll see you in 2025.